I'm Cole Haddon, and welcome back to 5 a.m. Story Talk. Today's guest is a Power Ranger, a Black Ops agent, and one of the best parts about Christmas. I'm talking about my dear friend Erin Cahill here, and we're about to discuss her life, acting career, and the cultural phenomenon that is Hallmark's countdown to Christmas she's been part of for 10 years.
I remember when I did my first couple of Hallmarks, I would go into these casting offices for like these big dramatic shows, and I'd be on my way out and the casting director would be like, I have to tell you something. Hallmark is my guilty pleasure. So I love that people are starting to own it and starting to go, I love it.
Welcome back, Story Talkers. The festive season is in full swing at this point. I hope you're surviving it, both emotionally and financially. It's a hard time of year for those who have lost people they love. I mean, most of my family, the family I grew up with, is dead at this point, so I get it. Then you add in the state of, everything, the world, and I really do applaud people who somehow get through the holidays without questioning their sanity. I'm going to discuss all of this with my guest today and why maybe everything I'm describing, grief in many different shades, I suppose, has led to this cultural phenomenon that is the Hallmark Christmas movie and the countdown to Christmas the Hallmark Channel launches every year. What does the Hallmark Christmas movie say about where our world has ended up? Why do they matter so much to so many? My guide through this conversation will be my dear, dear friend, Erin Cahill. She's an actress whose career goes back, a long time at this point. She's been a pink Power Ranger, appeared on so many TV series you love, like How I Met Your Mother, House, and Saving Grace, and was the first lead female character in the Call of Duty video game franchise. Her character, Chloe Lynch, or Karma, returned in Call of Duty Black Ops 7 this year. But Erin is probably most famous at this point as a member of the Hallmark Channel's repertory, especially as part of the network's Countdown to Christmas event every year. She starred in her first Hallmark Christmas movie, Sleigh Bells Ring, in 2016, and has starred in a lot more since then, including Christmas at the Catnip Café, which premieres this week. We have a lot of fun laughing about that title, by the way. As you're going to learn, I have an affinity for these films because my late mother loved them. They're not necessarily what I would normally talk about at 5 a.m. Story Talk, a podcast and newsletter that spends a lot of time fixated on the necessary role of art in reflecting our world, in helping us honestly confront the darkness, so to say, rather than only narcotize us to reality. But what can get lost in that position is that the real problem is a lack of variety in the Hollywood ecosystem. The world needs film and TV that makes us feel good, that remind us life is worth living. And I think that's what Hallmark films are doing. But the world also needs the deeper, more confronting, provocative dramas I might otherwise prefer to write myself. The fact that Hallmark Christmas movies have become so popular isn't incidental, I think. They're absolutely an expression of the times. And I want to understand better what they're doing for audiences. Erin shows up to honestly tackle that question with me, and I love her for it. I'd love her anyway, though, as I've known her for almost 20 years now, ever since my brother-in-law introduced us. Erin even moved into the apartment across the street from mine at one point. For 3 years, we were neighbors, she and my wife and I. This conversation you're about to listen to is probably the most intimate one I've had here at 5 a.m. Story Talk, at least in terms of how well my guest and I know each other. The laughs are going to come pretty nonstop at points. I hope you get a kick out of that. But we're also going to dig into Erin's unique spirituality, finding something profound in her work as an actress, and what the holidays mean to her. Can the arts be a life of service to something bigger in a way? Let's find out. 2 more quick things here. As always, you're going to want to stick around after this episode wraps. That's because I'm going to tell you how to listen to a bonus ep with Erin. She returns to discuss a seminal piece of art from her life, William Shakespeare's The 7 Ages of Man monologue from As You Like It. You might know it as the All the World's a Stage monologue. The other quick thing I need to mention is, if you enjoy this episode from 5 a.m. Story Talk, be sure to subscribe so this podcast keeps showing up in your life. You can even become a paid supporter at Substack right now for 35% off yearly subscriptions. That deal expires at the end of December 26th, so ignore what I just said if you listen to this app after that. You can find a link to take advantage of that deal in the show notes. Okay, are you ready to get into today's episode with me? Let me introduce you to my dear, glorious, ridiculously fun friend, actress Erin Cahill. Welcome, Erin. It's so good to see you. It's been a couple years, or not even that. I think 18 months, but you don't age. It's annoying.
That's very kind. I will take that and I will put that in my heart pocket. But let me tell you, lighting and makeup artists. Woo!
I don't know. I don't believe it, but the last two, we watched two of your films over the last week, and it was just annoying going, oh, that's still Erin from 2008. What weird CGI is at work?
Okay, again, thank you. Putting that in my heart pocket. Actually, no, putting it in my back pocket so I can sit on it and feel it. Thank you. No, I go to Paul, I go, all right, baby, time to get ready for bed because I got to go to the face gym. I really appreciate a good moisturizer. Let me tell you. Oof.
Well, I've written down notes here to work from, and the first was while I was talking to Lindsay, just thinking about our relationship, our friendship. I found I've had a very Benjamin Button kind of friendship with you because at the beginning, I think our energy couldn't have been more different. However, over the years, I find I'm now clicking more with you and looking forward to talking to you much more than a lot of the friends I made early on, which is funny because Lindsay spent the first 10 years of our marriage saying every time I said something she found a little startling, she'd say, oh, that's why Erin would always say, oh, Cole, about me. She's like, you were a weapon in her arsenal.
Weaponized? I didn't know that. I apologize.
So did I grow up? Did I get more interesting? Did you grow up get more interesting? And can I get an Oak Cole for time's sake?
You know what? You know what? If you play your cards right, kid, it might happen naturally. I, I think it's an interesting thing because I've actually noticed, like, I think people get softer or harder over time. I think it's just, and I think there's gradients to that, but I think it's kind of, it goes one way, right? You're either expanding or you're contracting. Kind of, there's no stasis unless you're, not, unless you're not a human. And it's interesting because I have noticed some of my very porous, soft edges have hardened a bit. I have better boundaries. I have, the ability to say no and the ability to say that doesn't work for me, and before I was just, I think, a bit floating about, but I've noticed for you in particular, your edges have softened. And I think that's a beautiful, that's something I remind myself whenever I find myself saying something, getting frustrated at something that 20-year-old me would have been delighted at, like just happy to be there, and I'm like, oh, and I catch myself. I'm like, that's not the way I want to go. That's not the way I want to go. Cahill, just keep in gratitude. And I just think that's something that I've noticed in you is you've I think gotten more thankful for the sweet moments, or at least that's my experience of you.
That's nice to hear. On your end, I think over the years, I think at the beginning you were happy all the time. You had a much easier access to joy than I did. I enjoyed things, but you moved through every moment with so much joy that often it was difficult for me to trust, which is just a personal, issue. But over time, you've let me see more of, I think, sort of the darkness, the drama under it, and I think I've really, really appreciated that.
Well, thank you. And I think that's, maturing. And like I said, that's me having a better sense of self, but also having, a better sense of boundaries, and also just knowing my people, like you guys are my people. And yeah, it's interesting though, because I would always say, I've gotten that since I was a kid. People being like, is that really you? Until their own personal barometer of, oh, that's her. Oh, like, oh, she's happy to, she means that, and that's kind of based on like the individual, but it's also, it's interesting for me too, to watch me be more okay with expressing my yin and yang, because everybody has it. Because as much joy as I do, and I think, as much joy as I do have, there is also the human side, the other side. And I think And I was reading, what is it? I was reading a book, something of happiness. The Happiness Project.
Mm.
And it's about, the scientific studies behind some people are made, just actually chemically made happier. And then it comes into play, the nature versus nurture of it. Because you can be born happy and then circumstance can do all kinds of things to you, but you do have a natural tendency to be buoyant in nature, as opposed to there are some people who come out just naturally, chemically are a little more prone to see kind of the darker side or let things affect them for longer, or not let them, just things affect them for longer.
Mm.
So I thought it was really interesting because there's scientific study, but there's also, a whole conversation about how much of that can be altered because, we can alter our brain chemistry. And that is just also, again, a scientific fact.
Yes.
That's why neuroscience is so cool, right? You create new neural pathways in your brain. You hardwire yourself based on what you think all the time. So there is, even if you're not necessarily made joyful, you can nurture that, you can create that, you can
Mm.
make new roads in your mind.
So let's go to a bigger question. Hopefully you enjoy it. I'm a fairly angry atheist, as you know, and yet I do think very angry. I do think human beings, regardless of their faith or lack thereof, look for the numinous, for something spiritual or wondrous as part of their existence. And I know I've experienced that as an artist while writing fiction in particular. So I'm curious, is the numinous something you're aware of in your life? And given the fact that you've been an actress probably longer than you can remember, have you experienced it while pursuing your craft?
Do you mean in particular like a sense of the divine? Or like a sense
Yeah,
of something
something
bigger?
that makes you feel however you define something bigger than us. Which is,
Yeah, yeah.
again, I'm an atheist, and yet I always I do find something
I
bigger, whether
love
it's energy or whatever it is, something that makes me feel slightly transcendent.
I love that. I love that question. And I know when I was listening to some bits of your podcast, like that's something you're very curious about. And I love that you talk to people about this because it's such an important conversation because, wow, it's so multifaceted. So I'll just try to make it quick. I think for me, and this is a new word to me. That's why I was like,
Mm.
contextually, I got what you meant. Numinous?
Yeah, it's a fun word.
It's,
Nobody ever knows it. I
yeah,
think I'm the only person in the world
I
who,
know. So I mean, if I got what it meant, in the context
yeah.
of what you're saying, but yeah, I think for me, like spirituality, that transcendence, that connection to whatever you consider to be bigger than ourselves, that energy, whatever you call it, is so individual. And I think, gosh, there's so many things to say about it. For me, I got so fortunate because I was raised by two, for lack of a better word, hippie parents. I mean,
Mm.
picture it. Mom in a white, like, what are those dresses with layers? Like a layered dress with little red roses sewn on it. And then my dad in a red velvet suit with bell bottoms, like long hair. And they would ask me growing up, do you feel like there's something bigger? And I was like, yeah, I feel like there's something. And they were like, great, sweetheart, find out what that is for you. My mom changed from my dad was raised Catholic. My mom was raised Christian. So she went to like Christian camp after school 3 times a week, very religious household. And then she got to college and was like, wait, everybody, I'm Buddhist. And she was like, this resonates so much more with me. And she's been a devout Buddhist ever since. I mean, I get every day, she sends me Buddhist quotes. She chants twice a day still. She's really revered in her Buddhist community. So it was very wonderful to have a mother who's teaching me that. And then a father who kind of wasn't as connected to his religion, but we would still go to, the Catholic church on some Christmases and with my grandma and things like that. So to have this really kind of, it's almost like I went to I got to go to, what is that in college when you study like theology and you study different religions? I kind of got to do that in my household, because I got a little bit, and then, and then every once in a while we would pop into like a Christian church, and then, I had friends who were different Lutheran. I would go every once in a while, just like, I mean, like once, but then I would go to Agape in LA. So like, I feel really fortunate that I was raised with a mentality of find what that is for you
Mm.
and nurture that relationship. And it's like everything, everything is a relationship. Everything. To our bodies, to our mental health, to our spirituality, to obviously to our partners, the people in our lives, to ourselves. So everything is a relationship, including your connection to the energy, to whatever you choose to call it. So
Mm.
I just think it's a really layered conversation, and I just love having it with people because I think for me, and oh boy, I hope I don't offend anybody, but I think all religions really, when you boil it down, it's about love and connection
Mm.
and wanting to live your life for a greater purpose in service. And, I think ultimately, and I don't want to speak for anybody, but this is just my opinion, that, happiness is kind of the highest form of transcendence. That's why the Buddha's laughing. That's why you see pictures of angels with a placid look on their face, but they look peaceful and happy. Because I think that is, for me, the ultimate, that's the ultimate, yeah, it said transcendence.
Do you find that in your work, that happiness connection, does it manifest as an experience there?
Wow, that's a great question. I think there are moments of it. I think, well, you can attest to this. Show business can be so glamorous. I mean, it can be, as a girl, it can be the hair and the makeup and the dresses and the cars and the champagne and the fun things, and it's a lot of actual work. It's a lot of studying. It's a lot of, you know, people think like, oh, they must be so fun to hang out with. And I'm like, I don't know. Look how well rested and physically fit they look. They're probably super focused. They're probably gonna have a salad and go to bed because that's
Mm.
how I am when I'm working. And so not all the time. I definitely go on both ends of the spectrum. And I like to say there's no in between. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll take a martini and a cheeseburger, please. Or I'm working and I literally don't drink and I have salads. But anyway, but do I find that in my work? I digress. I do. There are moments in my work that feel like flying when I'm in the middle of a scene and and my partner and I are just sparring and some unexpected thing happens and I get to access a piece of myself, a piece of my emotion to serve the story. It does feel like flying. It does feel transcendent. It feels like I'm using my life and being used in a way I'm meant to, which inherently is a transcendent feeling. Like if you're like, oh, but does it happen? I mean, it's not a state of being. I don't think it can be a state of being. I think that's called drugs. Like I think, but for me, there are such magical moments that happen that it does keep you coming back. It does fill you up enough to get you through those times when the rest of it is hard or challenging or sticky or confusing. I think those moments of let me numinosity. Does that work? Can I do that? Is that a thing? I'm trying. I'm like trying to. I just learned a new word. I'm trying to implement it in a sentence so that I have it now.
I love the word. This is why I said about fiction. It allows me, feels like, to connect to something larger. I think of art as a very communal experience. It's why I think movie theaters are much more, they're my church. And if you're in a museum, that's a communal experience. You're
Yeah.
sharing something. And whether it's on set creating that, whether I know you do a lot of conventions. I have to imagine that also is a rather deep connection. And I think it's the connection that I'm constantly curious about and how that is, I guess, experienced, which is, yeah, that's a nebulous thing. It's very different for different people.
That's true. That's well said because we all experience connection in a different way. And I think that's why we're both in the arts and why anybody in the arts, but also not just anybody in the arts. Actually, that's why everyone loves entertainment. There's a reason music is so important and it's been around since the cavemen. You better believe they were humming to themselves. It it's it's something inside of us that is, I think that's such a great way to put it. It is about connection. It is about, not just connecting, but seeing people and letting yourself be seen and having a shared experience. That's, there's, there's nothing like it. You can't go back from that.
So a side effect of my description of the first decade of our relationship, not necessarily being deeply intimate, was that we never did deep dives into our past. And maybe that's also because your sister and your mother were around. So your past just felt there, for me. So I'm curious. I know you're from Virginia. You talked a little bit about religion, but what was life like growing up for you and
Well,
your relationship to the arts at that time?
well, I love that. And I want to hear from you. I want to hear that too from you, truly. By the way, I just want to touch back to the religion part of it. I just love it. Like I just love that for me, again, and I know this is a lot of people don't feel this way and it's very, people can feel like this is the right way. But for me, I just think if you take the beautiful parts of religion, it's just at its core about love, really. And I just think it's, my mom, I was raised Buddhist, so like Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and then, and then the next minute I'll say thank you, angels, which is something I say every day. But I don't have necessarily like I'm not Catholic or Christian per se, but that's just what I say to connect to the divine. I'll say the universe, when I talk about faith a lot. And yeah, so I just wanted to say that because it's just a big part of me. And and it's my own unique relationship. And so I really honor other people's unique relationships,
I suspect you listened at least to a bit of that Scott Derrickson conversation I had. And
Yeah, all
that
of
was
it.
very jarring for me because even though I'm an atheist, I used to really be interested in other people's experiences. And I got so angry that I stopped asking questions about that. I shut myself off to it. And I realized it was, I guess, disconnecting me from other people's inner lives to some degree. So as an exercise, I'm trying to ask more, to leave myself open, not to conversion. That's never going to
Yeah.
happen. But we all experience something unique, and I think as artists, there's a relationship between that quite often and what we create, what we choose to do with ourselves.
Oh, 100%. I love that he was talking about making scary movies and thrillers and, you know, kind of the darkest of humanity and supernatural, but he's so spiritual,
Mm.
you know? And I just think, I just thought that was really beautiful. I thought that was really beautiful. You guys talked about it. I thought it was beautiful how open he was. And it really opened my mind to, and I'm a thriller fan. You know this about me. I'm a sci-fi fan. I love dark stuff. I'll put on Law and Order SVU and leave it on all day like it's a warm blanket. I love, like, I'll watch the really hard things to watch and I'll be like, because it made me feel, so I love that stuff. So I thought that was, it opened my eyes to horror makers. And it's not like the Guillermo del Toro's where it's like, it looks already just like the trailer. You're like, oh, this is full of spirit, but things like that could be considered a slasher movie or whatever have spirituality behind them. I don't think I ever thought of it that way. So that was a really cool conversation for me to hear. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Your
opening
childhood,
yourself
though.
up. All right. Wait, I do have to say this. I do have to say this because this is definitely who I am. Thank you for opening yourself up to your own growth and sharing it, even if it's an exercise for you, because you sharing it is having ripple effects and it's having me open up, just hearing it. So I think that's really important and really beautiful. And thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I will tell you about my childhood if you tell me a little about yours. Okay, ready?
Okay.
Grew up in Virginia. Mom's school teacher, dad carpenter. Got divorced when I was in middle school. Dad was an alcoholic, I guess is still an alcoholic, but got sober after high school. So, and it was never bad. He wasn't like, he was the sweet, fun, guy, but very happy. I mean, beyond happy. I got my dad back, and then he went from being someone that I was like, well, I'm done here. Bye. To being, I mean, he's my hero. And talk about, and he has been a living example for me, both my parents, of the edges softening, like of just, it's like everything in the way of whatever this, I was going to say the heart muscle, but guess what the heart is? Everything that's in that happens. I always say it feels like we're all little light bulbs, and then we come out and we put little scarves over them. Like something happens and we're like, oh, okay, can't really do that anymore. Oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. And we put all these thin little scarves on it until our light is such a different color and dimmed and whatever. And I just think the challenge and beauty and opportunity of life is to just keep peeling away those scarves and keep softening those edges and so you can shine just more and more of your own light, which I think ultimately is love, which I think then ultimately will lead to happiness. So he's just like, he's one of my biggest heroes. He's my hero. And my mom, I got lucky. But it wasn't without challenge. It was not without challenge, and it was not without work that we got to where we are now. And actual work. Like I did a transformational class when I was 19, and I took a bunch of classes, and I was like, hey guys, why don't we all talk? Like, let's all do this. Let's all talk, And that was in one of those classes. I realized, no, granted, I started when I was 19, so I think I was like 20 or 21. So still young. There's a lot of life to learn. And I've learned so many lessons since then, but it really helped shape my mentality to start thinking in that way that young, and then have kind of a Buddhist conversation about responsibility, like my own responsibility in life, not fault. And there's a huge difference. If something happens, it can't be your fault. Something happened, but it's just responsibility, how you interact with it and what you do with it, and your opportunity. I am rambling. Cole, so you guys, if the people listening on the podcast, I did a Christmas mug on purpose, and I put English breakfast tea in here, and I haven't had English breakfast tea in months, and I think I need to put it down because I think I'm like, yeah, mom, dad, definitely and they broke up in middle school, and my sister is 6.5 years younger than me, and she's the light of my life. And I always say I came out a half person, and I didn't know it until she came out, and then I was like, oh, I'm a whole person now. She's magnificent. Oh, she's magnificent. But yeah, they broke up when I was in middle school, so she was young. So she was like, of course it was like broke our hearts, but we were okay. But I was like, you know what? You're messing up my life, so I'm going to mess up yours by messing up mine. So I went from being like this straight A kid who literally walked around and knocked on all my neighbors' doors, which just about killed my mom because she was pregnant with my sister, but I was like 6, and I walked around to all the doors without telling her I'm okay. And I was like, hi, I'm Erin. I live at 6 McGregor Ridge Road. I just wanted to say hi. My mom's having a baby. I went from being that kid inherently to dyeing my hair green, being the second person in my entire town to get a belly button ring. I failed a class. I didn't. I got out of it because I did the work and whatever. But, my parents were like, what? Who's this monster that ate my child? And then I came back around eventually, and I love my neighbors. I baked cookies for them before, but I need to again. It's been a couple years.
There was theater in there, right? Too. Your mother.
Oh my gosh, you're actually asking. You're so sweet. I'm just talking about.
No, it's both. I want the personal, but also the other certainly is connected to what you ended up doing with your life. There's a bit of a secret origin there.
Oh yeah, no, I got so lucky. People I think try to find what they want to do, and my mom, when I was 4, so my parents met in the theater. My dad was a set designer, and my mom was an actress and a director. She was teaching English, also English. She's got, my mom has 2 degrees. So smart, so collegiate. She went to Penn State and another really great college. Can't remember. But she was teaching English at the local high school, and then also volunteering and teaching drama. So she was doing the plays, and she did Cheaper by the Dozen and Carousel in the same year. And I can't remember which came first, but she was like, I need a kid, so you're going to do it, essentially. I'm sure she asked me at some point, but my little 4-year-old recollection is you're doing this. And I was like, okay, because I'm an extrovert. So I was like, sure. I did one, let's call it Cheaper by the Dozen. Let's say it was my first one, and fell in love. And at 4 years old, I was like, this is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. period. And people would always ask me like, why do you want to be an actor? And I would be like, to make people happy, which I think is so funny in retrospect. And I think I meant what you're talking about. I think I meant that connection to make people feel something. I think I meant to like, you know, connect. Because it was never about like, I want to be famous or I want to whatever. It was always about other people, which even at like the tiny age, which I think is so interesting. And I'm thankful because gosh, if you do it for the other stuff, moo,
Yes.
you know?
I was going to say that by another description, that is a life of service. Not all artists embrace that, but what you're describing is a life of service in some way that it can bring you joy, but you're giving something that's part of the relationship you're describing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, but I think also that's part of what I was saying earlier, that feeling of profound, like when you get to connect with somebody and it's, and you have those moments and it feels transcendent. I think that's part of it too. Cause I think when we touch someone or make a difference with someone or enliven someone or make someone feel something, there's kind of no more magical feeling than that. Like it's the best thing ever, you know? Yeah. So I did my first play when I was 4 and never looked back. I forced my parents, I wonder if I can pull it up easy on my phone. Have you seen this? I forced my parents to get, I didn't force them. They did it willingly with me, but it was after months of begging. I needed a headshot when I was 8 years old. And I grew up in Stafford, Virginia. I like to say I grew up barefoot in the woods, mom, school teacher, dad, carpenter. So it wasn't like, there wasn't a lot of money rolling around to get headshots. So it's me in a director's chair in front of my house at 6 or 8, because I was like, this is what professional actors do. I need a headshot. Yeah, I mean, it's very telling of my personality. And then I just got into everything I could. I got, my parents were amazing. They busted their butt to help pay for my dance classes and all the stuff I wanted to do. And then at 15, I got 2 jobs of my own so I could pay for myself, and like do that. But I started doing dance when I was 8. And by the time I was 18, I was doing 4 to 5 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week on top of doing all the school plays and then on weekends having 2 jobs. So I think I also was sort of in training for the hours of production from that young an age. I'm used to 14-hour days. They get grueling at some point for sure at this age, like the older you get. But I think that's a muscle I had just developed from that young age.
It's remarkable too how quickly it goes flabby as soon as you don't exercise it. That energy that that you need for that. Even there was a time where I'd pitch 5-6 times in a day. Those are intense pitches, especially when we moved overseas. I'd come back, but oh my God, by the second pitch, the first day, it's like, I'm ready to quit. Let's just go home. I don't need this money. But when I lived in LA and you just did it every day, but that's the disadvantage of getting older. that energy vanishes.
Oh yeah. It's definitely more taxing now than it was before for sure. And I know exactly what you're talking about, when you're like, oh God, how much more? Huh? It does change. It does change. But I love that you even said that because it's like anything. And I just said it. I try to remind myself everything. Life is holistic. So yeah, you get flabby. That's hysterical. But you get flabby of mind, body, and spirit. You have to keep it in the gym.
Everything is, I find, a muscle. I didn't realize that until I left LA, and things that I had become so accustomed to there, how quickly they became difficult. Like how social I was in LA. When you remove yourself from that, it even showing up to a large party can take an hour, where in LA, it was just normal for me to walk into a room with 30 people and just be lively. And now, God, it's 6 hours of anxiety. Will I be able to turn it on? Did I sleep well enough?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Oh, I get it. because it's your, because also, right, like you're, oh, I love you, I get it. And it's so it is too environment, right? Like you
Mm,
get used to that clip. I have friends, some of my best friends are 20 years older than me,
mm,
and they live in LA and they're constantly out and they still have the energy. They're still,
mm.
because they're in it, right? It's a body in motion stays in motion, and that's your,
Yes. But
well, and because I asked, I wanted to know because I'm like, right, you grew up in Ohio,
no, Michigan.
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 Sorry, just, they're,
No, I mean, indistinguishable in a lot of ways, more industry in Michigan.
sorry, Michiganders and Ohioans.
Yeah, well, they got more political over time. Michigan has advantage of some really strong urban centers and a very large black population, which is why it's managed to remain blue for so long, because most of the state are, they're living off in the middle of nowhere, and you know, they slide very quickly there in the wrong direction. But my dad was in Vietnam, and he was on leave and went to Australia. That's where they were sending GIs on leave, and he got dragged onto a party boat. Sort of, you would know this from when you were younger. Women drink for free, men pay to get in. And so my mother was in the middle of a divorce, and all the GIs flooded these ships to meet people. And she met my father, and they wrote for 4 years. And he asked her to come to the States, told her to pack a bag in case she didn't go home for a while, and she didn't go back for 30 years.
Wow, I did
Yeah.
not know the story. I mean, I knew obviously that you had a tie to Australia and, but I did not know that. That's such a great movie.
I'm working on it finally. It's been a long,
Good.
long time coming to try to crack it. But yeah, I grew up in Michigan, a generally conservative household. I was the weird one. I was the one who loved the arts. And my parents, I didn't make sense to them, but they paid everything they could for every weird thing I wanted to do and supported it all. And every bit of it confused them. I was absolutely silly, incomprehensible to them. But over time, the relationship, I guess, healed a bit, and this will pivot to my next question. When my mother died 9 years ago, I asked my father. I put a tape recorder in front of him and said, "Tell me the story about how you met my mother." I ambushed him, and
Wow.
he talked for an hour after that funeral. They weren't married at that point, an hour and a half. It was magic. It was this entirely other person. I had no idea how much he used to love her, and so she died and so this is the pivot. She died in 2016, 6 days before your first Hallmark film debuted. And the last film that I ever watched with my mother was, in fact, a Hallmark Christmas film, Mrs. Miracle, the 2009 James Van Der Beek film. I think these films have had a strong relationship. I've had a strong relationship to them over time, in part because of that. My mother would have loved your Christmas films, especially I just watched A Timeless Christmas. She was fanatical for films about people traveling through time to find their true loves. So yeah, so to pivot back to you there, does Christmas matter much to you? I know I'm so the reason I ask that is I remember holiday parties with you with your mother and your sister, but I think those were Thanksgiving. Were they Christmas or Thanksgiving?
Okay, first of all, I don't want to just blanketly skip over that.
Mm,
I'm so sorry about your mom's passing and your parents passing, and it's, from what I understand, I'm so fortunate. They're both still here, but it's a whole, you can never. And you don't know until you know. It's like having kids. You just don't know until you know.
mhm,
So I just, I don't want to skip over that. And I also don't want to skip over the beautiful compliments about she would have liked my movies. So
mm,
thank you. And then I can't wait to come back to the hallmark of it, because what you said is so poignant about how people feel about these movies. So we'll come back there.
mm.
Now, what was your question? God,
Oh,
Erin.
I'm just I can't remember if we were doing Christmases together or
Oh, right.
Thanksgiving, but also just like is just on a personal level, I don't even know if you want to say, but was Christmas very important to you, given the fact that there are several Christmas films in my queue with your name at the top of.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, yeah. First of all, I think we did Thanksgiving and Christmas together.
Okay.
I think we've done both.
Okay.
And I just
I have no
say,
memory. I have no
oh,
memory. It's a blur.
I remember that. Where we'd have a conversation, I'd be like, we did talk about that, but it's cool. Like, because sometimes my brain does that too. So I have so much room for it when people are like, don't remember. I'm like, don't worry. There's a strong chance I might not have either. And then oddly, sometimes I'll remember the most random specific thing. I'll remember what someone was wearing and then them telling me about their Aunt Joyce in Florida who I never met. You know, like it's sometimes, so I don't know. My brain is unpredictable at best with that. And I've patience. Yeah. So growing up, they were both big, and they were both big for different reasons. Thanksgiving was the holiday I got to see my extended family. I spent so many Thanksgivings with my grandma, who's the light of my life. I just saw her last week in Connecticut.
You have a grandmother?
Cole, wait for it. Gloria Tebow there should be studies done about her. She lives in a 2-story condo. So she traverses up and down these stairs multiple times a day, moves at such a clip still at 93. I mean, yes, there are certain things that are, definitely she's 93, but like she's also not. When I was with her last week, I couldn't make this up if I tried. I tried to do the dishes and she moved so quick to take it away and go do it. She's like, you stop that. She's like, I need to do this to keep my independence. And I'm just so happy you're here. And I was like, lady, I took a video. I was like, what are you doing, Graham? How you doing? She's doing over there. Like, she's just magic. Anyway, so yeah, so Thanksgivings are so important because it was and is about family and gratitude and eating together. And, because of not only my parents' divorce, but because of just how busy I kept myself, we didn't have a lot of family dinners. I know we had them more when I was little, but then once I got autonomy, especially, forget about it, So they're really revered in my family. Thanksgivings are really revered. But Cole, I have been a Christmas fanatic forever. I love it. I love everything about it. And I think because, again, it just boils down to love and joy. Sorry. And I get so excited and I love to give gifts and I get like as excited as I used to about opening my own. Now I just want experiences. Now I'm like, don't get me thinking I don't need anything. Maybe like twice a year I'll turn to Paul and be like, because he's always like, you're impossible to shop for. Because I'm like, I just want to be with people and go see things. So I tell him, so it's like literally, it's like twice a year. I'll be like, write it down. I've always wanted one of those, and it's oftentimes little things. Like he just got these pajamas and I was like, this would be a great thing to get me. They're very soft, but other than that, anyway, as a kid, I just loved it. And I would just shop like weeks in advance and I would get so excited. And so but I love like all the traditions. I still love to bake cookies at Christmas. I still love to watch Christmas movies that I've seen 100 times. I still love to eat the same foods. I want the same turkey, gravy, mashed potatoes, stuffing, mac and cheese, collard greens. Like I want the same things every year. I love the tradition of it. And the food. I love to eat, so the food.
I'm now having memories of you having Christmas parties next door in LA.
Yes, your Christmas parties were epic.
It's funny because even yesterday I went, oh yeah, I lived next to Erin for like 3 years.
We bought the house in Nashville. We still are there.
Yes,
in LA.
yeah.
Yeah. I still to this day will walk by that place and think of you guys and point out. I mean, all the time. I'm like, that's where Cole and Lindsay live because I had so many great memories there. And when I think of Christmas parties in LA, and I'm not being nice, I'm not just saying because I'm talking to you, I genuinely think of Christmas parties at you and Lindsay's place.
Thank you. That is in a weird way the big loss of not living in Los Angeles is that it would take, there are no industries to make friends at that number outside of the US. The film TV industries aren't as tight knit. So there is no scenario where we'll ever have 200 people over for a party again. We'd have to invite strangers. So Hallmark films, these Hallmark Christmas films, and I think it's easy for people to dismiss them as fluff. And I don't mean that to sound as insulting because I wouldn't say that, but they're a cultural phenomenon now, parodied at every corner of society. SNL loves to do this. And they're so mass produced as to challenge how we normally discuss art. So that alone is for me a reason to talk about them, to really talk about them. So let's just start there. Are Hallmark Christmas films art in your mind, or are they just a weird cultural phenomenon, or are they both?
I personally think, by the way, you just said no offense, none taken, because I think the tropes are tropes, tropes are tropes for a reason. But what I think the magic of Hallmark, so I will say unequivocally, it is, what were my options? Art or both?
Art or cultural phenomenon?
Cultural phenomenon. That's it. Absolutely both. Absolutely. And you don't know how the sausage is made until you're in the factory, and then you're like, oh, or rather how the dish is prepared until you're in with the chef and you're like, wow, that's a better analogy. Let's go with that. Is how the dish is prepared until you're in the kitchen and you're like, oh, it takes so many ingredients and so much heart. You can't make this many movies and not have heart behind it and not have true artists wanting to tell stories. And is it a cultural phenomenon? Yes. And so I think for me, my experience with Hallmarks, I just started with them. I mean, I feel newer compared to other friends of mine who've been working with them for 13, 15 years, and they've done 28, 42 movies with them. And I've done like 13, I think, which is still, to have worked with a network and done that many movies.
Yes.
In this day and age, it's like an old-timey studio system. So as an actor, to have a place where I call a home, that doesn't happen outside of repertory theater unless you're so lucky and you happen to be in, I can think of like a handful of showrunners who use the same actors and kind of, tell stories in that same, with the kind of repertory theater mentality. But it's so rare. It is so rare. So anyway, hugely grateful. But all that to say, it's art and it's a cultural phenomenon. And I think in equal measure, and I think why Hallmark is so popular, especially now, is because, we're at a tough point in the world. When Hallmark was being really made fun of, whatever, let's call it a decade ago, over a decade ago, however long ago, we were in a different world. We were in a different place politically. We were in a different place economically. There was, we were watching more horror movies because we wanted escapism. We wanted art. We wanted, and now people want escapism to love and safety and comfort, because it's not in abundance right now, I think, personally. And you know what? Not only do I think, but shout out to everyone listening who's come up to me and said something akin to what you said, which is why I said it was so poignant. They've said, your movie got me through my mom's cancer or through my dad's passing, or, helped me realize that I needed to call that person, or, and all of us actors have the exact same stories, and we've cried with people who've watched our movies, and we've been buoyed by their stories. So I think it's such an incredible place to be as an actor at this point in my life and at this point in the world. There's no place like it. It's not BS. And I think that's why people also feel it, because we really are, like Cole, I'm on a group text with all of the actors from my Instagram where it's like, love you, so-and-so, love you. It's not like we're at these events, like being like, I love you, pal, in a Hollywood way. We really love each other, and we really call on each other to walk each other through hard times, through, disabled parents, losses of siblings. We've walked each other through the hardest, darkest times, crossroads in our careers, all kinds of things, divorces. We've really walked each other through lots of stuff. Still happily married, for the record. But it's really real and it's really true. And it's like that from the people behind the camera to in front of the camera. It's really, really about love. And it's singular.
I think once upon a time in Hollywood, the industry produced films that were often very sentimental, and they served a purpose in society. And then somewhere along the way, they stopped making them. And I do feel like Hallmark serves a purpose in that regard. Rather, it's not how do we suppress that. I mean, I work a lot in the UK. You use the word sentimental. I mean, even Richard Curtis, Christmas films, like Love Actually. Oh, it's too sentimental. I don't like Curtis. Too sentimental. And it's, oh my God, it's just
Uh,
sometimes
that's one
there's
of
joy in well executed sentimentality.
Yes, well, that's I dare I say probably one of the purposes of it, one of the intents, right? Is, for that sentimentality and yeah. And I mean, also, who would say that about Love Actually? It's one of the best movies of all time.
It's just the artists over there who would say it. These films make a fortune in the UK, so clearly the British love
Yeah,
that sentimentality, but there's a difference between how they respect art and what they enjoy at home. I mean, Mamma Mia
mm,
is still, I think, the most successful film in British history, and that
right.
is all sentimentality. I mean, it's just everything. There's nothing subtle about.
Right. 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 It's true.
Yeah.
I Yeah, and it's funny, actually, on that note, it's great. I remember when I did my first couple of Hallmarks, and now I'm but I would go into these casting offices for, like, these big dramatic shows, and I'd be on my way out, and the casting director would be like, "I have to tell you something. Hallmark is my guilty pleasure, and I loved blah, blah, blah," So
Mhm.
it's really like I love that people are starting to own it and starting to go, I love it. And the amount of actors in the last few years that have been like, "How did you get in the fame? Like, how did that happen?" And I'm like, "I
Mhm.
don't know. I'm so grateful." And I will say that also, I just have to say big shout out to the people that take care of other people. Like we have so many, Cole. We our biggest community is the nurses, doctors, first responders, police officers, people with high stress,
Mm.
high emotional weight to their
Mm.
jobs. I mean, they make up the bulk of our audience. They
Mm.
come home and they put it on and they don't take it off.
So I have a theory about I agree absolutely about as the world has darkened, Hallmark Christmas films in particular have been in ascendance. I mean, we're also talking about a world since 2020, since COVID. Everybody I know by just November 5th, I should just put up the tree. I just need some joy in my life. It, it's
Yes.
just become normal to do that. But my theory beyond that is the formula and the repertory of actors has simulated the experience of network television that we had for years, which is you came home and you spent time with people you knew doing things that were somewhat familiar to you, and it provided a emotional comfort after a long day from the 60s, 70s, 80s. And you put on a Hallmark film, the stories are different. Sometimes they get very creative, but you know exactly what you're going to feel. And I think that's the important thing. You're showing up for a feeling you desperately need.
That's so perfectly said. That's what we all say. And that's actually what we say because we're reflecting back what we've heard, what we've
Mm.
been told, which is, that's I mean, the amount of nurses that have said, I put on Hallmark because I know I'm going to get a happy ending and I know I'm going to feel safe and hopeful. And
Mm.
so it's just, and it's really like I keep saying it's singular. It's so singular in that way. There's no other network. Like the slogan for years, which I think still might be one of their slogans, but Hallmark, where love lives.
Mm.
That's it. You put it on any time of the day or night, and you're gonna get that. And it's interesting too because some years ago, oh gosh, it was probably like around when Virgin River came out, and I know this was like an exact quote. They had a giant board meeting and said, "We need Hallmark material. We need that kind of show." And they referenced it. And not to say about Netflix, we're now partnering with Netflix. Not people are partnering and swapping, but I think Hallmark has been an inspiration for a lot of streaming networks.
Mm.
You know,
Agreed. Yes.
yeah. And what a cool, beautiful thing that is too, right? Because it went from being the butt of the joke to, still, SNL's hysterical,
Mm.
but it's the butt of the joke in like an admiring way.
No, I agree. I think the downside of the competition, if that's what we want to call it, is that that repertoire isn't as deep. You don't have 10 years of relationships with, say an Erin Cahill, but also it might be accidental, but inevitably something on Netflix feels itself a little like a parody of Hallmark versus, you, not taking anything, but it's more just the cultural presence of it. Like Netflix decided to follow Hallmark, and it's something about it changes the end result, at least
It's
for
true.
me.
Well, and I feel that way too, because, not to single out any streamer, all of them. I watch movies on other networks and sometimes big rom-coms that come out, and I go, that is so funny. Like Hallmark has become such a part of the zeitgeist and part of our how we see rom-coms that now granted I'm so ingratiated in the world, so probably this is just the lens I'm looking through. But I had people go, gosh, that was like just like felt like a Hallmark. Or in Hallmark, I love that you said they get creative, because there are movies on Hallmark, to me, unequivocally, that are better than big blockbusters, that have such unique storylines, that have such beautiful depth and hilarious moments. And, there have been movies that have been bigger that I'm like, that was great. And, look over here, that you're going to get that entertainment and more, and you said there's something interesting too about like the decade plus of having familiar faces. That's why there was a studio system. That's why there was, that's why we love the faces we see all the time. And I think Hallmark's been so beautifully smart about that. It was so funny. I 40 and slipped it and said Heartwork. After I said it, I was like, I think it just said Heartwork. But that's what they've been so brilliant at, is it does feel comfortable. You do feel like you're like, ooh, I'm seeing a friend on a new adventure, kind of,
So, final question for now. We're going to come back for a bonus episode chat about a foundational piece of art from your life. But Christmas at the Catnip Café, I had to practice saying that 10 times. My mouth does not want to handle that alliteration.
It's not just your mouth. It's such a cute title, but then when you try to say it fast, you're like, ooh.
It looks great on paper. I did a preview of this with another episode, and I think it was 10 or 11 takes before I got it right. And even then, I think I cut 2 of them together. So just saying it now is the best. I got it out in one go. I want to ask about why would my mother have loved this?
Oh, I love that. Oh, here's to your mom. She would have loved this movie because it is everything you want in a Hallmark Christmas movie. It really, sometimes their scope can be narrow and it's more about the romance. It's more about, and this is definitely obviously romance forward, but the scope of this one, hopefully there are some scenes that are pretty comedic through scenes that are, that are so real. Like we have a kind of the all is lost moment, and it just felt so real. It was so rooted in reality, and everybody fought for that. So I think, I think your mom would have loved it because it will touch your heart and on the whole gamut. And there are cats, and my co-star is very handsome in a vet outfit. So I'm just saying, everybody likes to look at a guy in a vet suit holding a cat, So
I love the Hallmark formula. What are we not getting enough of? We don't have enough cat lovers. We're going to nail that audience now.
Yeah, apparently, like there's been a lot of that chatter online because I've been doing interviews all day, and I had no idea that people were like, finally, because they've only done a couple cat movies in the past and they did extremely well. And it's because the cat people were like, finally, there's dogs in like every other movie.
Well, thank you so much for the conversation so far, Erin. It's been a delight.
Thank you. I always love talking to you, my friend, forever and always. And I'm really honored to be here. You've had some absolutely incredible humans on. And so thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to join them in the swimming pool. So thank you. And you tell Lindsay and the boys I send my huge love. You tell the whole family, here's what I want. I want you guys to get together and do a big group hug for me. This is my formal request.
I'll get the kids together. I'll send you a photo.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
I'm counting on
All
you.
right. All right.
All right, my friend.
All right.
Bye, love. Thank you.
As for you out there listening today, thanks for joining me for the penultimate episode of 5 a.m. Story Talk's second season. Don't run just yet. There's a bonus episode with Erin Cahill coming your way, which I'll tell you more about in a second. First, I'd like to know, what did you make of my chat with Erin? I hope you laughed at least half as much as we did recording it. If you have any questions or thoughts about this discussion, drop them in the comments on this episode at the 5 a.m. Story Talk newsletter at Substack or the 5 a.m. Story Talk podcast at Instagram. You can find links to both in the show notes. Be sure to also check out Erin in Christmas at the Catnip Café at the Hallmark channel this season. Now, as for that bonus episode, Erin returns to discuss a seminal artwork from her life, and it's an unexpected pick too. William Shakespeare's The 7 Ages of Man monologue from his play As You Like It. You might know it as his All the World's a Stage monologue. Erin, as you heard, grew up in theater. This monologue changed how she looked at what she does, and we're going to get into why, what it taught her, and where she is in her own journey through the 7 ages. Erin even gives a soft performance of the monologue, the first time she's delivered it aloud in decades. What a treat, too, especially as she heats up. The best way to listen to this bonus ep is at Apple or the 5 a.m. Story Talk newsletter at Substack. Again, check out the show notes. Next week, I'll be back to talk in depth about why we never get tired of the iconic Christmas film, It's a Wonderful Life. Spoiler, it's not because life is all that wonderful. Be sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss out on this maybe heartbreaking, but, like the film, ultimately uplifting audio essay. Well, I hope so, at least. Happy holidays, Story Talkers. See you soon.